So that was the Premier Rasta. I think it's a beautiful documentary, but as I mentioned at the start of the film, I just think the topic is so wide and so varied that it warrants at least some debate, and I think that's what we're going to try and do for the next 45 minutes, possibly an hour, possibly even more, depending on how many questions you may have. To my left is Helene Lee, and to my right we have Benjamin Zephaniah, I'm sure many of you recognise. Could you join me in welcoming our panel? Do you think that there is almost like a precursor to the story we've just seen of Leonard Howard in terms of where those sort of roots and those influences in terms of Rastafari sort of emanated from Africa first, which would probably sort of sit alongside that film?
We could go back to Adam and Eve. You know, it's, in fact, you know, the title, The First Rasta, I mean, you could say, you know, before then you could talk about the Nyabingis in Africa. There's so many influences that have come together for Rasta. It's impossible to actually say where it starts. It's really impossible. I mean, that's just the physical lineage. When you talk about the spiritual lineage now, that's even more difficult.
That's interesting because I mean, I don't know, but would most Rastas acknowledge that Rastafari itself is in terms of its actual start, its platform, is something which is quite difficult to actually point to any one particular period or tribe or...
It's something you may hear Rasta saying over and over again, and it sounds like a cliche, but we say it because it's true. When people ask us, when did you start, when did you become a Rasta? We say, well, we was a Rasta forever. And then we just came to a realization.
In fact, even everything that you can call the black movement, redemption movement from slavery onward, there are tracks, there are marks of that in the whole movement. All the different religious, political, social, racial, all the aspects which had different expressions, means of expression and currents in history are somehow reflected in the Rasta movement. So in fact it's a whole history course that we should teach the children.
In London now we have schools of Jewish only, Muslim only. How long before we have a school run by Rasta?
I must tell you the truth, I wouldn't want that. No. I don't even want a Black History Month, although I'm involved in it. Because we should be reaching the state where Rasta is just a part of the general education. Why do we have to keep finding ghettos? When the time comes, the Jews will say, well, we want things our way, the Muslims our way. We should be an integral part of life here. The message for Rasta is not, the message of Rastafari is not just for Rasta people.
It's very interesting because some people resent the fact that I bring the Indians into the story, or that I bring Lenin into the story, or that, and they resent it, and others say, oh, but this proves how Rasta is universal, as Rasta is a universal thought, open to everything, and it can bring all the people together because of that. So, what do you think about that?
I think those who don't want to talk about Lenin or Indians or any other influence are limiting themselves.
My question is, because Rastafari has such a clear imagery associated with it, and a clear message, it should be said, how does it fit in today's world?
You know, I still think that a lot of people don't really truly understand what Rastafari is about. You know, and a lot of this is because I remember making a record once, and the record company said that, you know, we have to put ganja on the front of the album, you know, because it's a Rasta, and you know, and I don't smoke. And I said no, and he said, but that's what Rasta is all about. You know, and I said, well, a part of it for some people, but it's not what it is all about. I've always believed that Rasta people should be more out there, more political. We should be articulating what we are passionate about more, especially in times like this of big consumerism. Lots of Rasta ideas are really needed now, not just for Rasta, but for the whole world, the whole country.
Because there is a lot of now in the government, a lot of thing about localism and how to rely on your own. But actually doesn't come from a background of being self-sufficient, but more about a background that all the services are cut, so you have to rely on your own. And how could you relate that to now?
Self-sufficiency is not only growing your own salads. It means also thinking by yourself and educating yourself and choosing what you read and researching by yourself and talking with other people. It's also that self-sufficiency and believing in you and in the fact that you can think by yourself. All this is autosufficiency, I believe. The fact that sometimes the kids who come and say, so what do we do now? How do we become self-sufficient? I say, first thing, how much did you pay your shoes? £200? Yeah, that's why you are a slave. You learn not to depend on the system. You are the slave of your needs. So learn to have smaller needs.
Can you join me in thanking Helene Lee and Benjamin Zephaniah? Thank you.